Can you even imagine starting a business with just 2 paise, like the smallest coin imaginable, and turning it into a global empire? Well, today we're digging into the absolutely wild story of Haldirams, one of India's most iconic snack brands. It is a roller coaster of innovation, heartbreak, and pure resilience that built a company now worth, well, just look at this. That's right, 90,000 crore. We're talking over 10 billion US dollars. That is the mind-boggling valuation of the Haldiram's empire today. You know, it's a number so huge, it's almost impossible to believe where it all started. So, that's the big question we're tackling. How does a 12-year-old kid selling a simple snack from a tiny little shop in Bikaner go on to create a legacy that lasts 100 years and feeds millions around the world? Okay, let's get into it. All right, our story kicks off way back in 1919 in the dusty streets of Bikaner. There's this young boy, Ganga Bishan Agarwal, who everyone would soon know as Haldiram, and he starts learning how to make bhujia from his aunt. Now, his family, they were pretty happy with their small shop, but Haldiram, he was built different. And that right there, that's the whole ball game. From day one, he had this fire, this ambition that went way beyond just running the family business. He saw this massive potential where everyone else just saw their daily routine. And that drive, it led him to a breakthrough that would change everything. So his first big move was to completely reinvent the bhujia itself. See, the standard stuff back then was made with gram flour, or besan, and it was kind of thick, kind of soft. Haldiram noticed that folks in his town loved moth dal, so he started experimenting, blending it into the besan. Big improvement. But he didn't stop there. He wanted it thinner, crispier. So he actually worked with local craftsmen to create a special mesh with super fine holes. The result? This perfect, thin, crispy bhujia that people just went crazy for. Okay, so the product was a hit, but this next part, this is where you see the marketing genius. He knew he had something special, so he gave it a special name, Dingar Sev, after the most famous and beloved Maharaja of Bikaner. By linking his snack to royalty, he instantly made it feel premium. It wasn't just another bhujia, it was the bhujia. And because of that, he could charge more, and people were happy to pay for it. But just as he was hitting his stride, his whole world was about to be turned upside down. After years of hard work, building a name for himself, building a business with his brothers, everything, and I mean everything, was about to come crashing down because of a massive family fight. In 1944, the dispute got so bad that Haldiram was kicked out of his own home. And it wasn't just the house he lost. He was forced out of the very business he had built from scratch, without a single rupee to his name. Suddenly, he, his wife, and their kids were literally on the street. But what he did next is just remarkable. Instead of giving up, he bumped into an old friend who, by sheer luck, paid back a 700 rupee loan from years ago. It was a lifeline. He immediately got a small home for his family. Then, he and his wife, Champa Devi, who made this amazing moong dal, started cooking it together. He'd go out and sell it to workers in the market. Once he had a little money coming in, he went for it. He relaunched his famous Dingar Sev. And guess what? The people hadn't forgotten. So, with his business back on its feet in Bikaner, Haldiram's vision started to get bigger. It was actually a wedding he attended in Kolkata that opened his eyes to just how big this thing could get. He saw a national opportunity. And this national expansion really happened in 3 key stages that built the brand we know today. First, they went to Kolkata, then they took on Nagpur, and finally the ultimate challenge, Delhi. Each city was a totally different beast, and they conquered each one with a completely different playbook. This is just so smart. In Calcutta, they saw that there was hardly any competition for bhujia, and to really win over the locals, they created a special Bengali mixture that was an instant hit. Then in Nagpur, his grandson saw that the sweets market was wide open, so he introduced Kaju Katli and gave out free samples to get everyone hooked. It totally worked. Then he opened a restaurant, but instead of just selling his own snacks, he started by serving what people already loved, dosa and idli. Once the place was buzzing, then he introduced his own samosas and kachoris. It just shows you how incredibly adaptable they were. Just when the Delhi shop, run by his other grandson, Manohar Lal, was finally starting to gain ground in the crazy competitive market of Chandni Chowk, tragedy struck again. During the horrific anti-Sikh riots in 1984, their workshop and their home were both burned to the ground. They were back to zero. But just like his grandfather, Manohar Lal refused quit and rebuilt the business from the ashes. So by the 1990s, Haldiram's was a really strong brand in a few key cities. But there was one more innovation, a technological one, that was about to launch them from a regional favorite into a national powerhouse, putting their snacks in pretty much every home in India. The real game changer was all about the packaging. See, traditionally, these fresh snacks, or namkeen, would only last for a few days, but Haldiram saw what brands like PepsiCo were doing and invested in nitrogen flushing technology. It sounds complicated, but it's simple. It pushes all the oxygen out of the packet, and that extended the shelf life from just a few days to several months. This was everything. Suddenly, they could ship their products anywhere in the country without worrying about them going bad, and the business just exploded. They weren't just the bougie guys anymore. They expanded into this massive portfolio of over 400 different items. Sweets, pickles, ready-to-eat meals, you name it. All with a long shelf life, available in every tiny corner of the country. And you better believe they didn't just stop at India. Today, that same packet revolution allows them to export their snacks to over 80 countries around the globe, making Haldiram's a true ambassador for Indian food. So when you step back and look at this incredible 100-year story, what's the secret sauce? It's really a masterclass in how a massive business can grow from the absolute humblest of beginnings. And here we are again, back at this number. From 2 paise to 90,000 crores. It's a journey that really just boils down to a few core ideas that Haldiram and his family just never, ever gave up on. When you really break it all down, their success comes down to this. They were relentless about product innovation, from the recipe to the packet. They used smart branding to stand out right from the get-go. They showed unbelievable resilience, literally rebuilding from nothing twice. They didn't have a one-size-fits-all approach. They adapted to every single market. And finally, they weren't afraid to embrace new technology that completely changed the game for them. The story of Haldiram's, it's about so much more than just snacks. It's about this powerful mix of having a vision, having pure grit, and being willing to change with the times. And it kind of leaves you with this one big question to think about. In a world that moves so fast, what are those timeless ingredients you really need to build something that lasts?